All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Des Moines. It's fantastic to see everybody here. It's really exciting. Looking forward to this meeting. This morning we have some introductory talks, a few different things, and then a fantastic meeting to follow up. So what we're going to start off with now is just a couple of introductions, and then we'll move into the morning session. So my name is Mark Conde. I have been the chair of the CEDAR Science Steering Committee for the last 3 years. I'm the outgoing chair. And up here on the podium, we have the chairs for the current chairs and the incoming chairs for CEDAR and GEM. We have Alison, Lynn, and Christine here. I'll ask each of them to introduce themselves in a moment. And then we will go through a brief introductory presentation that will outline how the meeting will proceed and what we're planning to do. So, as I said, I'm Mark Conde. Anyone who wants to come and talk to me during the meeting can. I'm very keen to talk to everybody. And I'm just really pleased to see everybody here. There's been a huge amount of work that's gone to get this meeting organised, to get our two communities working together and doing this joint meeting. So I think it's going to be an exciting week, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I'll ask our other chairs to come up and introduce themselves, and then we'll go through our introductory remarks. So, maybe Lynn?
Hi everybody, my name is Lynn Harvey. I'm the incoming chair of the CEDAR Science Steering Committee, and we've got a wonderful, rich, exciting week planned for you. I am so excited. It's like Christmas morning. This has been a year in the making. There are many people here that I know, and there are also many people that I don't know, and I invite you to introduce yourself to me in the hallways and during the breaks, or if you see me walking around Des Moines. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine Gabriels, and I'm the chair of the GEM Steering Committee. And I also just wanted to share that GEM is always my favorite workshop of the year. And I am thrilled that we get to join with CEDAR this year. Like Mark said, a lot of work was put into combining the two so that it was a real blend of how both communities like to do the meeting. And so I'm grateful to everyone who's put it together, and I'm excited for this week. Like they said, please come say hi to me if you'd like, give me questions, or just chat. I'd love to meet you.
Hello, I'm Allison Janes. I am the GEM Vice Chair and will step up as Chair starting next year. This is going to be a rough time. Everyone knows that. We're in the middle of sort of a crisis, but I wanted to give everyone a challenge for this week, which is to, when you hear all the verbal doom scrolling that's going to be going on in the hallways and in the poster sessions, maybe inject a little bit of positivity or some exciting science into the conversation to try to swerve that pattern. And I know that we've got a lot of hurdles ahead. We're going to be addressing those during the week. So I hope that we can also have some good times as well.
All right, well, thank you for that. I think Christine and I will now go through a brief overview of how the meeting will play out as our sort of introduction here. So let's see if maybe I can hand to Christine.
Sure. So we're going to have fun ping-ponging back and forth, make it a real joint GEM CEDAR introduction. So our first slide is just introducing you to the GEM Steering Committee voting members. A lot of people I feel very grateful for here who have put work into the meeting. Those who are marked in blue are stepping down after this week, so specifically want to say thank you to them for all of their hard work over the past 4 years or so. This Thursday we'll be voting in new members to replace them and look forward to welcoming them to join us.
Continuing the ping pong here. So this is the CEDAR Science Steering Committee as it's currently arranged. Similar to GEM, we will be, there's I think 4 of us rotating off. I haven't highlighted the 4 who are rotating off for CEDAR, but there's 4 of us rotating off. We will be electing new members this week. But this group of people has been working on your behalf since the last meeting to organise this one, and a subset of us have been meeting with GEM weekly pretty much, certainly in recent months, to get this meeting together. And it's really been fantastic. GEM and CEDAR have worked together so well in the last year. I was afraid that our cultures might be different and that this might be difficult, but it's turned out to be really fantastic and really positive. And so this is the group of people that have been working on the CEDAR side to organise this meeting and to get us here. And so, if you meet, I think all of us on the CEDAR Science Steering Committee have a little ribbon on the bottom of our badges to say that we're on the CEDAR Science Steering Committee. So if you see someone with one of those badges and you would like to go up and introduce yourself, I'm sure all of us would like to speak to anyone who would like to meet us. Back to Christine.
Thanks. GEM Steering Committee also includes liaison members who I've included on the side. They're all listed on the GEM Wiki if you'd like to read more about them. And the other people we really want to highlight and thank are our NSF partners. As hopefully everyone here knows, these workshops are supported by NSF, and so we have been so grateful over the years for NSF's continued support to make these workshops amazing, where we can really further our science. So on the GEM side, we have two program directors, Chia-Lin Huang and Vanya Jordanova. They both work within the Geospace cluster in the Division of Atmospheric and Geospace Sciences. Although they're not here this week, they will be hosting office hours later on Wednesday and are always very happy for you to email them and reach out with questions. They're very nice and very approachable, so feel welcome to talk to them anytime you want.
And so also on the CEDAR side, so the NSF has reorganised itself into this Geospace cluster. So all our program managers sort of work together now, but at least notionally on the CEDAR side, we have Shika and Taiyin as our program directors. And, as we all know, this has been a rather difficult few months, but, I want to assure you that all of our program directors have been working really hard to do what they can to advance the needs of our community. And, we've been talking to our program directors in the last few months on, what CEDAR and GEM are going to look like in the next year or so. And I can tell you that our program directors at NSF are doing absolutely everything they can on our behalf, and we owe them a big debt of thanks there. So none of our NSF program directors are able to be here this week, but we will have an agency update on Wednesday morning, and they will be joining us virtually to give us an update on NSF's ability to support these programs. Back to Christine.
Thanks. So because we are joining two different communities, we thought we would take a few moments just to give a really high-level overview of what GEM and CEDAR are like, how they're kind of structured, and that can help you understand how this week was organized. So GEM is really structured around these right now we have 10 what we call focus groups, and these are community-led, and these different focus groups are the ones who organize the sessions on their particular topics. And so we have two focus groups that are, oops, I'm using the wrong, I'm actually going to use a pointer. The two orange focus groups in top are rotating off after this year, and the three blue focus groups on the bottom, this is their first year. So thank you to those groups who are starting off in a different environment with a joint CEDAR meeting. We appreciate all our focus group leaders for working with CEDAR to put these sessions together. because as you recall, what we asked when people put in the proposals for sessions was that for the joint sessions, they work with our focus group leaders to ensure that they are somehow related to the particular GEM science that our community has decided is the most important topics to focus on. And so for those in the GEM community, because we do have 2 focus groups ending, just think about if you would like to propose a focus group this year for the next 4 years. We have a new selection process that we started off last year, where instead of submitting your proposal a month before AGU, you submit it, or the call comes out in September, and then you submit around October, so the community can read your proposals in advance, provide some comments and questions that can be addressed at mini-GEM, which is when the proposals are selected. So pay attention, think about it, look for the call in the GEM Messenger and around the September timeframe. Oh yeah, GEM also has resource groups, which are kind of umbrella groups that work with our focus groups to achieve the scientific goals. The 2 are called modeling methods and validation and machine learning. So you can see that's more of a technique than a science goal. So these leaders work with a focus group. For example, the machine learning resource group may work with the radiation belt focus group to design a session using machine learning techniques to study the radiation belts. So that's what those groups are.
So one of the big contrasts between CEDAR and GEM that became apparent as we started to organise this workshop is that CEDAR and GEM do things quite differently. And whereas GEM is very structured and organised around their focus groups, CEDAR has a model that's much more based on anarchy, where each year we just ask people to propose what they think would be a timely and relevant and interesting workshop for that year. So we don't have this really tight focus group structure. And actually I remember during one of our planning meetings we were talking about some of our afternoon workshops being separate and some being joint. And I said, well, can we have a joint workshop between CEDAR and GEM that doesn't address one of the focus groups? And our GEM counterparts said, well, that just wouldn't make any sense. And I couldn't quite understand why our culture is so different. From the CEDAR side, we just do whatever we feel like, almost, whereas GEM, it's much more structured. So what we do have on the CEDAR side, though, is we do have these, as well as our workshops that are just proposed each year by whoever wants to propose whatever they want to study. We also have these longer grand challenge workshops that run for 3 years. They awarded more plenary time during the meeting, and they're a longer term study. So I've just lifted this description from our bylaws to describe how these grand challenges operate. We actually have 3 grand challenges operating at any given time. They're staggered in time, so there's a year 1, year 2, year 3. The current grand challenges are listed here. I'm not going to go through them. There's a large number of conveners associated with each one. I've just listed the names of the lead convener for each of the grand challenges. One of the other big differences between CEDAR and GEM, the way we do things, is that CEDAR for many years have had these sort of prize or award lectures that are part of our workshop. We have a distinguished lecture which is awarded to usually a senior member of our community for many years' contribution to the field, contributions over more than 10 years that are deemed to be significant. It's a very prestigious prize. We also have a prize lecture which is meant to recognise recent work in the last few years of particular significance. And then we have a number of science highlight speaking slots that are also double as essentially awards or prizes. We have ones for just general science highlights, and we also have early career science highlights. And again, that was one of the structural differences between CEDAR and GEM that we had to deal with when merging this meeting, because GEM doesn't do that, and we only have, we have a certain amount of split plenary time, a certain amount of joint plenary time. So we've got, I think, a couple less prize lectures this year than we normally would because of the merged agenda. let's see, I think you were going to do this one, Christine.
So just some GEM CEDAR statistics. We have, from the GEM side, 264 registered in-person attendees, 205 posters, and NSF GEM is supporting 89 graduate students, 2 international students, 21 postdoc early career scientists, and 8 undergraduates. Do you want me to speak to the whole thing? Okay.
So on the CEDAR side, you can see the numbers there, 344 in-person attendees, 202 posters, which is surprisingly, or very notably similar to the GEM poster numbers. We have our student competition. I think both groups have a competition for student posters, and that will be held this week. And then we have, we're supporting graduate students. Unfortunately, a few less than we might typically support, but we're still supporting 46 graduate students and 4 undergraduates to attend. And you can see the totals there. I do want to comment in passing that I said to Christine I was very impressed with the colours she chose for the banner for these joint slides, because for my entire career I have been studying neutral winds in the thermosphere, and I do that by looking at Doppler shifts of optical emissions. And so what you see there is the blue shift on the left and the red shift on the right. So it's you know, it's very close to my heart, the colour scheme that's been chosen there. I want to go through the just how this week will play out. When we started planning the joint meeting, you know, we had to figure out how do you actually come up with an agenda that covers the needs of both groups. And so we've got a merged agenda here. So there's a number of joint plenaries where we'll all be together in this room. That's this morning, Wednesday morning, Thursday afternoon, and Friday morning. And then I think in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes time, they can split this room into 2 halves. And so on Tuesday morning and Thursday morning, there will be split plenaries. So there'll be CEDAR only in one half and GEM in the other. And right at the moment, I don't know which half goes to CEDAR and which goes to GEM. But so this room will be split for those split plenaries. After the morning plenaries, there are breakout workshops in the afternoon. I think we have 7 breakout workshops running in parallel. Some of those will be CEDAR only breakout workshops, some will be GEM only, and some are joint. And so I think most of those are in the level down below. The rooms surrounding the poster hall area there is where the breakout workshops are. We have poster sessions on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon with judging proceeding there. So a new thing for CEDAR, which I think is really fantastic, is because of this large venue we've got here, all of the posters will be up all week. So for CEDAR, we normally would divide the posters into ITM and MLT posters, and the posters would only be up for the day that topic is covered. This week, all the posters are up all week, so you can look at them at your leisure. And so I really like that. It does mean that you need a venue with access to a poster hall for the whole week, but here in Des Moines we have that, so that's really good. We also have a number of what we're calling community care sessions, and then you'll see quite a bit of those sort of events on our schedule. And you know, CEDAR and GEM are professional organisations, and we have a responsibility not just to advance the science of our field, but we also have a responsibility to advance the state of our field. And that means that advancing the organisations that support our science, and also advancing the health and well-being of our scientific community. So we've got quite a few sessions addressing that, both in plenary form and during the breakout workshops times. Those are a really important part of what we do, and you know, it's not just us. AGU does the same thing. All these sort of professional organisations have their sort of advancing the health and vitality of the field as part of their mission, and we're exactly the same. So there's a lot of things there, and one of the reasons that we're doing them here is because those are the sorts of things that you can only do through the umbrella of a professional organisation that can bring everybody together and organise those sorts of events. So they're a really important part of the workshop for this week. As well as the main meeting thing, there's various lunchtime events. Our agency representatives have agreed to support office hours both in person and virtually on Wednesday. There's various side meetings where there's rooms that can be booked here for side meetings, and I think there's still availability if you need to organise just a breakout group between a few of you. it's still possible to book a room for that. Of course, we have our banquet on Thursday, a number of extracurricular events. I think Christine might mention some of those. We will have a suggestion box, or I think hopefully we do have a suggestion box now, so if you've got thoughts on how we could improve the meeting, please don't feel shy about giving us some feedback through that. And plus other online forms and things, but a physical suggestion box here, very, very old school. And I believe for GEM, normally there would be a GEM app to cover the workshop. I think that GEM app has just gone live in the last few days, and there's a link down there for that. CEDAR people can use the GEM app as well. I think one of the benefits of the GEM app is that it gives you the agenda in a nice, easy to access form that you can just pull up on your smartphone.
For the purposes of time, I'm not going to read through all of these. Feel free to take a picture with your phone if you want. A lot of these are available on the schedule. I do want to call out a few things, though. If you signed up for the GEMI mentoring program, there's the lunch today. There's also about 40 walk-in spots for students and the mentees. If you didn't sign up but you're interested, go to the registration desk and sign up. It's a first-come, first-serve situation. There is a quiet room in room 302, so that is a space where people can go if you just want a place where there's no talking. Maybe you're overwhelmed, there's too much noise, you need to step out and get a breather, or you just want to check your email with no one coming up to talk to you. That's room 302. So please respect that, room 302. If you go in, please don't talk. There's a prayer room right next to it in room 301. Our recreational room is room 311, and that's where you can see the registration desk to reserve the space for an activity that you'd like to host. And there's also a calendar of events. One of the activities happening is today, actually. It's a training on safety in the field, which is going to be led by our plenary speaker, you'll be hearing from this morning. So if you're interested in learning about how to be safe in the field, because I know several of us go out there to deploy instruments, et cetera. Think about attending that during the first afternoon breakout session. Later this week on Thursday, we will have several addressing burnout sessions. Burnout has been a topic that a lot of people have come to us saying that they're really struggling with. They're having a hard time progressing their science because they feel burnt out. And so I think all of us can learn from this. We all struggle with burnout. We invite you to come to a plenary session that will be discussing that on Thursday. But there's also going to be some breakouts at 10 a.m. There's a compassionate leadership for burnout. So if you're a leader, how can you notice if the people who you're managing are dealing with burnout? You recognize it and help them work through it. That's at 10 a.m. and it's open to anybody. There's also 2 limited coaching sessions, and that's what this QR code is for. It's also at the registration desk. If you would like a chance to, in a small group, go through coaching session with our speaker, there's a lottery system to sign up based on your career stage. So check out that QR code. I think, let's see, so we have other events like the fun things like the excursion to the Iowa Cubs game on Tuesday. We have a community organized queer beers on Wednesday. 6:30 p.m., meet by the registration desk, open to everyone. Going to walk to the Garden Restaurant. And I do want to call out on Friday, we're having a town hall during the lunch hour addressing advocacy in the face of heliophysics funding uncertainty. So that can give you some tools to feel like, what can I do to help the field in this time?
All right, I believe we're getting a little bit short of time, but a couple of things we really do need to mention are both of our communities have codes of conduct that are managed through our conference organisers. So in the case of CEDAR, it is CPAS. In the case of GEM, it is the University of New Hampshire. Our codes of conduct are presented at the registration desk, and I think on both sides, all of us agreed to the code of conduct when we registered for the meeting. So clearly you can't read that, but the code of conduct is important, and we should regard the code of conduct as the minimum expectation. All of us should go beyond what's written there. We should be kind and considerate to each other. We should not, at the end of talks, we should not have combative, aggressive questions. We should, be thoughtful and supportive at our poster sessions, and we should treat everybody the way we'd like to be treated, and as I said, perhaps even go beyond that and really try and support each other. So the codes of conduct are important. If you are involved in anything that you think might be a violation of the code of conduct, or if you see a violation, the appropriate people to respond to that are our meeting organisers. So that would be CPAS and the University of New Hampshire. Now, obviously, if there's something urgent, there's venue security, there's steering committee members if necessary, but any issues that do arise, reporting should be through our conference organisers. Do you want to say anything about the Fem code?
Yeah, not too much more to add. We're required to have our own separate code of conducts, but they're very similar in nature. So when you registered, you agreed to them. The full definitions for GEM are there online. And similar to what Mark said, if you are recipient or witness of inappropriate behavior, you can report it to UNH via these various ways on here, and I believe there's some information on the back of your badge if you registered for GEM on how to do that. And if, as Mark said, if immediate action is needed, so harassment would be going on at this meeting, then the recommendation is to immediately go to the meeting organizer at the registration desk to file a report. And of course, if something involves a possible crime, then please do contact the relevant authorities first, immediately, and then go to the GEM organizers. And of course, you can come with any questions at any time. So we did want to address a question that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what's going to happen next year? And of course, there's a lot of uncertainty, but we did want to convey that both the CEDAR and GEM steering committees met and are committed to organizing our respective 2026 workshops. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, but it's going to happen. Our workshops are too vital to building our communities and to furthering our science to let these workshops lapse. So we have released a survey and a petition to provide NSF our community feedback and support for the workshop. So the CEDAR QR code is on the left, the GEM QR code is on the right. I know at least the CEDAR one was sent in an email on the mailing list from Caitlin Greer, correct? Yes, and then the GEM QR code is at our registration desk, and we'll send that out in the GEM Messenger as well. But please consider answering the questions to these polls so that we are able to go to NSF and say, this is what people feel the workshop is worth. And if you do feel like it's worth continuing, you're welcome to sign your name as a petition. Again, NSF is not required to listen to us. This is just providing them information in case hearing from us would help them with their decision making in the future.
All right, now I would just add to what Christine said that when we say these meetings will be held next year, that's not just words. We actually have a plan for, at least fallback plans for how we would actually do this, even in kind of the worst case scenario. So I think you can take home to the bank the fact that there will be CEDAR and GEM meetings next year. So this is the last slide. One of the most important things to do now is to thank the large number of people that have put a huge amount of effort into getting us here. That includes our meeting organisers at CPAS and University of New Hampshire, our two respective steering committees, a joint task force that was formed by the steering committees to work on just the mechanics of merging these two communities for the meeting, our venue and hotel staff, and of course NSF, who have been very supportive of our efforts to come together here. As Christine and Alison have both said, these are uncertain times, but what we can be certain of is this week we've got a week to celebrate our science. Our program, I think, is really exciting. There's a lot of science sessions, a lot of other things that we've got. The venue, I think, is magnificent. The expertise in this room, I sit here and look out at the expertise, it is really impressive to see just the scientific horsepower that we have assembled here. What we study is the bit where Earth meets space, the boundary between our planet and the rest of the universe. And what could be more exciting than studying that for a week? So enjoy the week. It's going to be fun, it's going to be exciting, and we're all here. It wasn't clear that we would even be able to make this meeting work 6 months ago, but we're here and we're ready, so enjoy the week and be supportive and be kind to everybody. So thank you.
All right, so next we are super excited. Oh, sorry. Okay, we are super excited to have here virtually our NSF Division Director and Deputy Director of the Atmospheric and Geospace Sciences, Anna Johansson and John Hannon, who will say a few welcoming remarks. Anna, you're on mute, I believe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
We actually have two cameras, but we can't make the other one work, right? I'm in the room with John here, so optimally you would have seen both of us. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so welcome everyone to the 2025 Joint CEDAR GEM Workshop in Des Moines. We are very excited to be able to provide you with a few opening remarks, and it's just so exciting to see so many of you in person and online joining this joint workshop. So my name is Anna Johansson. I'm the Division Director for Atmospheric and Geospace Sciences, and I'm joined here today by John Hannon, our new Deputy Division Director, who will provide a few additional remarks after my few minutes here. I want to start off by acknowledging the communities, both the CEDAR and the GEM communities, and their persistence and long-standing history of meeting in these workshops. I think it's more than 3 decades now that these groups have been meeting regularly, and it's been our pleasure to be able to have supported these efforts. It's also exciting for us to see that GEM and CEDAR are meeting jointly this year, and it is our intention to continue supporting these efforts. NSF is always looking for opportunities to facilitate gatherings, to share ideas, to collaborate, to learn, and to innovate. I also would like to acknowledge that during these times of change and transition and recalibration, it is more important than ever that we gather in these types of workshops to share ideas and spark new connections and collaborations. And we're looking forward to hearing the outcome of this workshop. With that, I would like to get to the next slide here. So, as many of you know, NSF is an independent federal small funding agency that allocates about 93% of its about $9 billion budget to support research and education in all non-medical fields of science and education. And that also includes supporting infrastructure and workforce development. The Directorate for Geosciences is one of 8 science directorates, and together with various offices, we work together to meet NSF's mission. AGS sits within the Directorate of Geosciences, and we're one of 5 units. We work in close collaboration across these boundaries of the divisions and the Office of Polar Programs. We have, as was alluded to, I think by Mark earlier, we have restructured recently. And as part of this restructuring, we hired John as our Deputy Division Director who came on board about 10 months ago. This restructuring was in part motivated by input from the community, who had asked us to better integrate AGS programs and to simplify the proposal request mechanism. So what we have done is to organize ourselves in loosely defined clusters where there is significant overlap and collaboration happening. But within each cluster, we basically removed all programmatic boundaries. So you can see in these kind of blurred circles, the original programs, and each of these programs had their own program call. So now, if you were to look for instance, would like to submit a proposal that straddles aeronomy and magnetospheric physics, you wouldn't have to figure out which program to submit to. You can just submit to the Geospace cluster. So there's unsolicited proposals are accepted anytime to the Geospace cluster and as well to the atmosphere cluster. So with this realignment, we basically have facilitated the process of submitting and removing boundaries, reducing the siloing that we have so often experienced. And we have already received great feedback from the community. As always, and I saw that you guys have venues or opportunities to provide feedback here today or throughout this week, and we're always open to hearing from you and look forward to the outcome, as I said earlier. With that, I will turn it over to John.
All right, thank you, Anna, and thank you everybody for having us today. It's been a real pleasure getting prepared for this and seeing what's on the agenda. And as Anna mentioned, I've only been in the division for about 10 months now. I came here from the Department of Defense after about 20 years there. And earlier in my career, I actually did have some space weather research activities in DoD. So there have been some connections and some faces and names that I've been able to reestablish with. So that's been great. It's been a great move coming over to NSF. I want to echo what we heard already from Mark and Christine about the importance of the program officers. These are the folks that really make things happen here for us. And you've already been virtually introduced, and everybody I think knows Chalin, Tayin, Shika, and Vanya. But we also have Mangala Sharma, who I believe is on the line, and she's our resident PO for space weather research, and also the cluster coordinator for the Geospace cluster. So she's the one that is the linchpin, really, of everything that's going on programmatically, and also overlooking some of the scientific synergies. And then also Andreas Keiling, who's one of our rotators, and with a focus on solar terrestrial research, we have him now from University of California, Berkeley. And notably for everybody in this community, I'm sure, is we have a couple of recent departures, unfortunately, with the change of administration and some of the things with early retirements. But Lisa Winter and Roman Makarovich are both no longer with us. So those are huge losses to not only NSF, but the community writ large. But I would say definitely, reach out to your program officers and continue to thank them. As you heard early on, this is a really challenging time for us, not just at the NSF, but in the research and education community writ large across the government. So anything you can do to make sure that they know that they're appreciated with the work that they're doing, that would be something that Anna and I would certainly welcome. Before I say anything else, I did notice too that there is the survey. So I would say right now, one of the really important things for everybody in the community is self-advocacy. So anything that you can do to help us help you would be very much appreciated. So when that data is collected at some point, I hope to be able to see that and see what kind of comments we'd get back from the community here in the joint workshop. That said, I know Mark already hit this a moment ago, but I'll also, again, thank both the science steering committees and CPAS and UNH for organizing this. I know that's been a tough challenge to try to integrate multiple groups that have a long history, independent histories, and try to pull that together. So with that, I will cede the floor, but thank you very much for having us today, and we look forward to a successful joint conference.
Thank you so much, Anna and John, for taking the time to come speak to us. There was clapping for you in the room, in case you couldn't hear. I know we're all really appreciative of you taking your time. So next up, we have our student representatives who are going to give us an overview of their student day yesterday. We have Aiden, Erica, Austin, and Sophie, who have been a pleasure to work with the past year. All right.
All right, thank you all, and thank you to the chairs for letting us speak this morning. So yeah, we're your student representatives from both CEDAR and GEM community, and we've been working for the last year to figure out how to combine our very different but both very special student days together. So I guess we could all introduce ourselves. My name is Sophie Phillips. I'm from Arizona State, and I am the outgoing CEDAR student representative.
I'm Austin Smith from the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and I'm the outgoing GEM student representative.
I'm Aidan Thayer from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, the incoming CEDAR student representative.
Hi everyone, I'm Erica Hathaway. I'm the incoming GEM student rep. I'm from the University of Michigan.
So today we have, we'd like to thank of course, our student day tutorialists and panel, everybody who managed to come out, all of the people that devoted their time, came early, flew early, booked hotels early, to devote their time to us. Of course, the student volunteers who are helping throughout the week in terms of panelists, conference moderators, etc. The NSF who provided funding, support for us to be here, because many students would not be able to be here without their support, and poster judges, especially in the GEM community, who are helping out running the whole poster competition, because that is a huge amount of work for them, making sure that they provide proper feedback. Am I missing anything? I'm good? Cool. And then we, as sort of a break from CEDAR GEM tradition, or from CEDAR tradition, we have a lot of institutions here today from a lot of students. So we just sort of like to flash some of the, or hopefully all, of the institutions that are here, and sort of go through them. But to recognize the students that are here, if this is your first time attending a CEDAR or GEM conference, please stand up and be recognized. For all of you, please don't be afraid to ask questions, and good luck at your first conference. If this is your second time attending a CEDAR or GEM conference, please stand up as a student. And we'll go third. Yay! Okay, and 4+. Woo! Those of you at 4+, make sure that you walk around, finish your thesis, get your jobs done. I believe in you getting your thesis done. Student events.
So yesterday we had a fantastic student day. We had over 16 sessions in the afternoon. We had around 10 in the morning, and we had a lot of different attendees, so that went wonderful. But student activities are not finished throughout the week. We have events almost every day of the week. Today we have the mentoring lunch, so as you guys heard earlier, if you haven't signed up for the GEMI mentoring, there are still spots available. And then not listed here is the career dinner later this evening. That's also going to be in the same room as the GEMI mentoring lunch later today. On Tuesday, there is the GEM elections. And so if you guys are interested in being involved in planning GEM at any capacity, please do let me or Austin know. On Wednesday, we have some pretty fun things that are happening. There's the hobbyist lunch hosted by Kat Davidson. If Kat's here, do you want to wave? Yeah. So it's in the recreation room for those who couldn't hear. And then later on the evening, Will Teague is going to be hosting Queer Beers. Will, are you here? So that's also going to be a really fun tradition extension for something we do at GEM every year. On Thursday, we have the student-invited plenary. So for GEM, we have Dr. Tony Rogers, who's going to be giving a wonderful talk on budget science in an uncertain age. So as we focus on more small sats and CubeSats, what that science is going to look like. And then afterwards, we're also going to be handing out student poster awards for the poster sessions that are on Tuesday and Wednesday. CEDAR also has a feedback lunch on Thursday, and there's the banquet later on in the evening. So as you guys have fun throughout the week. We hope you take lots of pictures, join Discord, so that you can communicate with other students and make new besties. And I think that's it, so we hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week.
All right, so next, we wanted to start off our invited talks this week with a talk on the topic of anti-harassment. And I know that for many of us, GEM and CEDAR are one of the most supportive communities we have been a part of. We have seen in our polls that most of us feel welcome and have positive interactions at our workshops. So I want to commend all of you for that and thank you for making this a great place to share science. Yet each year, we do hear of some inappropriate behavior, which can range from something unintentional to something that qualifies as harassment. The result can make a victim less likely to engage or lead to more devastating consequences. So because we value each of you and because we know that the majority of you want everyone to discuss their science safely and with confidence, we decided to seek out a professional who is familiar with how a science community operates to talk to us about fostering a safe environment free from harassment. So we're therefore excited to introduce to you Dr. Blair Schneider, an associate researcher and science outreach manager for the Kansas Geological Survey and co-PI of the Advanced Geo Partnership. And I'll let her explain a little bit more about the Advanced Geo Partnership, which addresses the problem of harassment and other exclusionary behaviors that lead to hostile working and learning environments in the earth, space, and environmental sciences with a grant from the NSF Advanced Program. Dr. Schneider is currently serving as the past president of the Association for Women in Geosciences Foundation and is the PI of 4 active federal and state grant awards that are focused on broadening participation in STEM. She is the recipient of the 2023 Research Staff Award from the University of Kansas and the 2019 Special Commendation Award for her work from the Society of Exploration Geophysicists. Her research in combating exclusionary behaviors in the geosciences and STEM more broadly has led to over a dozen publications on the topic, and she now serves as the managing member of the Advanced Geo LLC, providing educational consulting on topics of bystander intervention, codes of conduct, communication strategies, and field safety. The latter being the topic of her training session later today in the first afternoon session in the multipurpose room. So let's all welcome Dr. Blair Schneider.
Hi, y'all. All right, I'm gonna do the best that I can on sometimes what feels like a real downer topic. But I'm really hoping that we're gonna walk out of this feeling really empowered, because what I wanna talk to you all about today is how the NSF has helped enable us create strategies, create structures, create partnerships that have enabled us to actually create some real change, not just in the geosciences, but in STEM more broadly. So I'll start with just quickly, who am I? First and foremost, I want to point out that I'm a scientist. My PhD is in geophysics. I work with law enforcement and archaeologists, so you can kind of guess what targets I look for with geophysics. My postdoc was in STEM education, and I'm a research scientist. And so I really come to you having been raised in this science environment. I'm a faculty mentor. I work with undergraduates, and I have master's and PhD students at the University of Kansas. I'm a mom and a partner. I have biased the coolest kid in the world. And I've done a lot of different leadership roles, specifically with the Association for Women in Geosciences. So I have a pretty strong background in nonprofits at this point, too. And I'm here to talk to you about what we've done with the Advanced Geo Partnership. So the Advanced Geo Partnership was originally funded in 2017 by the National Science Foundation Advance Program. This program has been archived for now, but we do hope that it's going to come back. And our first award in 2017 culminated because a lot of this conversation was happening about exclusionary behaviors. Anyone here heard of the Me Too movement? Okay. In 2016, the Me Too movement was becoming prominent again, and I say again because the Me Too movement was actually started by Tarana Burke in 2006. And so we came together as a group of societies, and I'll show you in just a sec, to try to figure out what's happening in the geosciences. So I'm going to show you some data, and then also to not just leave it there, but to have some strategies for how to move forward. So that's where our bystander intervention training came from that I'll talk about, and then we've built a whole bunch of more training since then. In 2022, we got a second NSF Advance Award, so I'm going to touch on that. We've actually developed a Train the Trainer certification program so that folks can learn how to do these trainings in a supported and safe environment. And then we've been working with departments for an entire year so that we're not just doing one training, but we're actually saying, let's get together for a year and have products, value statements, codes of conduct, field safety assessments. So I'll touch a little bit on those as well. That's our website that you can see up there, so please do check that out. I want to point out that the Advanced Geo Partnership, it started with 3 societies: the Earth Science Women's Network, American Geophysical Union, and Association for Women in Geosciences. Since then, we've partnered with many other professional organizations, and then our leadership team comes from all these different institutions that you can see here. In our most recent award, we've also been partnering with a wealth of other amazing societies that are shown here. So this is the first publication that got us started. At the 2016 AGU meeting, Billy Williams, who's on the executive leadership team there, had a town hall about forward-focused ethics, really trying to say, okay, we're starting to see a lot of media coming out about people experiencing harassment and bullying in science. What does AGU need to do now to try and address this, prevent this, so on? So we came together and we hosted this forward-focused ethics session, and that's how the grant came about. Erica Marine Spiota, who's the lead PI and is a total, I'll say BA, a total amazing scientist, she put this grant together, she put this team together, and one of the things that we were hoping to address with this grant was to get rid of this assumption that it's a leaky pipeline, that we don't have diversity in STEM. The leaky pipeline model assumes that only women leak out. It assumes that there's only one pipeline or pathway for science. It assumes that individuals outside academia aren't actually contributing to science. It's passive. And it also assumes that we just need to patch up the holes when in fact the whole pipe is corroded and we need to replace it. So our group actually advocates for the hostile obstacle course. And so this was published in Nature Geoscience. And with this obstacle course, we're trying to show that the leaky pipeline passive imagery betrays the fact that in many ways, the experience for minoritized scholars is more like a vicious or hostile obstacle course with barriers that have been put in place to slow down or exclude certain groups. To address the lack of inclusion within the workforce, this exclusionary obstacle course should be placed in the context of scientific racism, colonial legacies, ableism, and systemic biases that permeate our disciplines and our institutions. We argue that in the geosciences and beyond, we must first acknowledge the cultural and structural barriers that this hostile obstacle course presents before we can dismantle it. And so I'm just gonna lay that out right now, okay? We've got lots of papers to talk about this if you wanna read more about it. But discrimination, racism, ableism, and harassment persist in STEM. Severe power imbalances in academia tolerate these exclusionary behaviors that create hostile educational and workplace climates. We have very archaic, gendered, and racialized hierarchies. We have stereotypes of what a geoscientist is. And ultimately, this is by design. Look at how institutions were formed and when they were formed. They were designed for certain individuals from certain classes. So the first thing our group did was start by gathering some data. We wanted to see what geoscientists were experiencing in the workplace. And so one element of data collection was a series of focus groups at some of the major Geoscience Society meetings in 2017 and 2018. It was published in PLOS One, but here are some of the major themes that emerged from these focus groups. First and foremost, the role of identity and intersectionality. The amount and type of harassment endured increased with multiple marginalized identities, and I'll show you that in some of the survey data as well. Alcohol use. Man, this was really prominent in our focus groups. During socials, professional meetings in the field, alcohol was identified as a recurring issue, and we know from the literature on harassment and assault that alcohol is used as a weapon. The lack of relevant harassment training. Much of the trainings that exist either did not seem relevant or did not give participants specific skills they could use, and were often just a checkbox from a university to say that they had done the Title IX training. And then lastly, what stood out to us from the focus groups is that we started this work really focused on sexual harassment. And it was so clear from those focus groups that sexual harassment does not happen in a vacuum. If an institution or a workplace is supporting sexual harassment, they're supporting a whole wealth of exclusionary behaviors. So it really broadened our study to look at harassment, bullying, and microaggressions at large. So our workplace climate survey, we did this survey in fall 2019 and early winter 2020. So the nice thing about this is that it's pre-COVID. However, I would be really curious to see if we run the survey again after COVID to see what kind of an impact that had. And we sent it out through these 5 different societies and got over 2,100 responses. And I really want to point out that just one person having harrowing experiences in a discipline is one too many. And so even if we get this number down to like 0.005 in the end, right, the ultimate goal is that we make these numbers 0 when we look at negative behaviors. But first and foremost, let's also stress the fact that a lot of these responses were positive. These are complex stories. More than 70% of respondents had experienced positive interactions with their peers, like someone showing them genuine concern and courtesy, respectful treatment, someone going out of their way to help with the work problem. So we're definitely seeing some positive interactions, and that's a really great start. But that also means that some, not all are, right? 37%, for example, never or only once or twice received public recognition for their work. More than half reported experiencing public recognition at least sometimes, some as even as often or almost weekly. But the frequency of pro-social behaviors or supportive in the interactions in the workplace over the prior 12 months, it changes, and it changes by identity. So let's look at some of the negative behaviors specifically. We asked folks, have you ever had concerns for your physical safety? Have you ever experienced insulting remarks? Experienced devaluation of your work and efforts, or experiencing bullying and intimidation? And I will say on the bullying and intimidation one, I've learned over the past 6 years as I've taught these trainings that a lot of people don't actually recognize bullying. It's become so normalized in the academic structure that we don't even realize we're experiencing it. So I personally would argue that this number is underreported. But ultimately, these numbers aren't 0. And these numbers have negative career impacts. They're widespread. 50% of folks said that they had avoided colleagues because of these behaviors. 40% had considering leaving their institution or considered completely changing their career. Skipping a professional activity, that's something like this. That really impacts our ability to network, to engage, to get funding, to start new projects. And I want to point out that these negative career impacts change because of identity. If we looked at those who considered leaving their institution, individuals that responded who were Black, African American, or African, almost half, whereas those numbers are different as we start to change those identities. Let's dive into that a little bit more. We compared the overall percentage of incivility events by gender identity and found that non-binary respondents and women experienced higher rates of incivility than men. But I want to make something clear. Men also experience incivility. We are all potentially experience these things. It's just that some groups will experience it at disproportionately higher rates. This is consistent with the results of previous research that marginalized groups experience a disproportionate impact of incivilities. We found the same trend for individuals who identify as disabled. They experience statistically significant more negative workplaces. And then I want to talk about power dynamics. When we started looking at harassment, we found that students, postdocs, and trainees were twice as likely to experience sexual harassment. And this is really important when we talk about any type of exclusionary behavior. Those of us who sit at quote-unquote lower power levels are much more susceptible to that. And there's actually quite a bit of literature out there demonstrating this. And sexual harassment is a bit of a spectrum. If you're looking for a great resource on this and how to identify sexual harassment, the 2018, report on sexual harassment by NASEM, there we go, National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, they put out a 2018 report. And they use this analogy of an iceberg. And I'm a geologist, so I got really excited about this. And what they show is you've got this large iceberg sitting at the water, right? And only some of that iceberg is actually above the water. The base of it is below the water. And at the tip of the iceberg right there, you've got these more socially recognized behaviors as harassment, assault, things like that. And as you start to move below the water line, which is what we call public recognition, it still is sexual harassment. It's called gender harassment. And that's what's happening on a daily basis. So in the last 12 months, we had 14% of respondents report that they had experienced sexual harassment. And you can see that, 97%, 94% of that includes gender harassment. And that changes based on identity as well. While 14% had experienced sexual harassment, those numbers changed as we start to look at different identities. The folks who experienced the highest rates of harassment were non-binary respondents. And then I want to also point out that right now our institutions aren't necessarily set up to address these issues. Title IX, while it can be valuable in some purposes, is usually meant to protect the institution. And so there's been unequal satisfaction with outcome of reporting discrimination, harassment, or intimidation. So again, across different demographic groups, regardless, people have been pretty unsatisfied, but we see changes in that level of satisfaction based on identity. So some take-home messages from that climate survey. Workplace experiences in the geosciences differ by identity, by gender, race and ethnicity, sexual orientation, ability, and career stage. Historically excluded groups are experiencing more negative workplace environments and are more likely to report negative career outcomes. And diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts should address hostile behavior effects on careers and retention in the geosciences. Okay, so that's the bummer part, right? Let's talk about what we do next. Because it's one thing to collect data, it's a whole other thing to talk about how to create change. And so that's a huge part of Advanced Geo Partnership. We believe in trying to figure out how we change culture and climate at all levels for everyone, by everyone, okay? Engagement of the geoscience community is central to this project's multi-level approach to improve workplace climate. But transforming workplace climate requires culture change at all levels, and that's why we decided to work with professional associations. They are really the catalyst to really keep this moving forward. And so we do have a framework for how we're approaching this. We incorporate different frameworks of intersectionality, ethics of care, and research integrity. We have different change strategies, whether it's through trainings like bystander intervention, whether it's talking about codes of conduct and talking about treatment of people as research ethics. And then we acknowledge these different barriers that we're working around. And I want to quickly touch on two of these frameworks. First and foremost, intersectionality. Anyone heard this term? It got pretty popularized when we talked about the Me Too movement. Intersectionality is essentially talking about how we can address problems of underrepresentation and inequities in STEM as a function of social injustice and oppression. So it takes identity and positionality in there. It looks at unequal power dynamics, and it goes beyond just looking at one type of exclusionary behavior to looking at this broad spectrum. And it really helps us talk about who feels safe or not in the field, for example, who has access in the field, who is experiencing the interpersonal mistreatment, bullying, or discrimination. And then ethics of care framework. This is giving us the power to change the way we evaluate personal relationships and professional conduct. And one thing I really want to point out about this one is this bullet point here about scientists and researchers as facilitators. So y'all, I did not get my PhD in social science, but at this point, I think I have to kind of call myself a social scientist to some extent. But I think one of the reasons we get the buy-in when we go in and we talk to these different audiences is because I'm a scientist with those experiences talking to scientists. I know what we've experienced, and that has made a significant impact. So we teach the 5 Ds of bystander intervention, and I'll give you resources for where you can find those, but I want to point out some really positive results. This is data collected from 2018 to November 2022. I've got over 1,260 responses in these evaluations, and what we're seeing is like significant gains in both recognizing exclusionary behaviors, because that's what the first part of our workshops are about. What does harassment, bullying, and microaggressions, what do they look like? What are they? And then what I really want to point out, though, is that it doesn't matter what power level you're at. Everyone got just about the same level of gain in the bystander intervention techniques, although we've definitely got the most positive responses from students and postdocs and feeling empowered to do that afterwards. And then even better, 6 months after the training, we've had over 40 workshop participants that had completed the survey, so they actually used the bystander intervention techniques. So not only are we showing that we're doing something in the moment, we're seeing that change happen afterwards. And I just want to point out something. When you learn how to do bystander intervention, it can kind of change things. I just ran a field camp like 2 weeks ago, and I've got these undergrad students, and I come down, and there's this person, and he's yelling at the hotel staff, and my students look really uncomfortable, and they're like, I really wish we could do something, and I'm like, on it. And I just walk over there, and I just basically gently distract the individual, and they were in pain, they were having a problem going on at home. I got them out of the hotel. They even called the hotel staff afterwards and apologized for their behavior, right? And my students are just sitting there and they're like, you just gentle parented this person out of the hotel. And I was like, no, that's called distract. This is a bystander intervention technique that didn't put myself in danger, didn't put any of you in danger, or the hotel staff. These are proven strategies that can help us in these types of situations. So where are we at today? I told you already, advanced program has been archived, but we were thinking about this stuff a couple years ago. So we are now in our second year as an LLC. It's really fun learning how to file business taxes when you've got a full-time job. But we now are not dependent on having this NSF grant funding, right? And I want to just go ahead and say right now, I know times are hard right now. And so we're probably going to be offering a lot of free trainings, is what I'm trying to say, so that we can keep this stuff going while trying to avoid burnout. We offer bystander intervention training. We talk about implicit biases. We talk about developing effective codes of conduct, safety in the field, and a brand new one about communication strategies. Our audiences have ranged from departments, field sites, professional societies, or conferences. We've done over 275 trainings, and not just in the geosciences, in bio, and sociology, and psychology, engineering, biomaterials, pharmacy, physics, agriculture, meteorology, chemistry. My most favorite one, we did one for dentists, and it was really cool. Our codes of conduct workshop have actually resulted in these amazing codes of conduct that have been produced, both at the department and the professional society level. And part of our second grant is to build this Train the Trainer program, right? So starting in 2020, 2021, we put together this training to say, okay, we want other people to be able to run these trainings, right? But we have to then make sure we're investing in you and providing you resources, because then I can assure you that going in and talking to people about potentially things that they're doing wrong, it's painful, it's hard, and you have to know how to facilitate those kind of conversations. So we've developed training workshops for our Train the Trainers. We've seen significant gains in confidence and how to facilitate these different topics. We've seen a lot of gains in what we call dealing with resistance. And I almost want to rephrase that. Sometimes people can feel defensive in some of our workshops, right? Because we recognize when we're talking about a behavior, we're like, oh, I've done that before. And so that's what I consider resistance, right? It's getting past that kind of that hurdle, that push of feeling like, oh no, I did something. In our over 275 workshops to date, we've got 44 facilitators who've participated in the more than one training and 17 who are now serving as lead facilitators for the workshops. So we really are starting to grow. We've got an entire resource page. These are free, accessible resources for you on a variety of different topics. So please do check those out if you need them. And then one cool thing I wanted to point out too is looking through professional societies. This is something Billy Williams really advocated for. Starting in 2016 and looking at change through 2021, we've seen a big shift in professional societies within AGI, American Geosciences Institute, that federation, who have adopted codes of conduct or codes of ethics that actually address harassment and now other exclusionary behaviors, and that have disciplinary actions or consequences for those. The AGU actually adopted into their code of ethics in 2017 that discrimination, harassment, and bullying are scientific misconduct, right? So this is an ethics violation, and our logo is treat people better than data. So this is an important part of that. And other societies like the Geological Society of America actually are really transparent in this stuff too. They've got new codes of conduct. They have really clear reporting structures, and then they publish each year a summary. Here's the number of complaints that we got. These are all anonymized, right? This is the type of complaint it was, and then here are the things we've done to date, holding themselves accountable to show that they're trying to support community members. And then a last cool example is the Societies Consortium. This is over 100 societies. Again, AGU really helped spearhead this. who have come together. They provide legal resources, training, and all sorts of different options like that to support any individuals that have experienced harassment in STEM. All right. I also want to point out, depending on your identity, look at all these amazing communities that have come out since then. These are affinity groups, right? So they're really there to build and support individuals who identify with these different groups. They're great partners. And then lastly, just to point out some things that are in progress, we do have the Department Workplace Climate Program, and we've got Advancing Field Safety. And so this is actually through Ceres at UC Boulder. The Department Workplace Climate, last year we worked with UMass Amherst and the University of New Mexico. It was a pretty intense process. They had to apply. We had some focus groups with them. We did 5 different trainings, and then we were pretty much like office hours and consultants for them and helped them develop products together. By the end of the year, both departments had completed 5 workshops, developed value statements, developed a draft of a code of conduct. This is an example of one of their word clouds. We are going to do one more department next year. So if you are a chair and you're interested, please reach out to me. It's completely free to your department to participate in this activity. And then for advancing field safety, this is an open access online MOOC, massive open online course. I think that's what MOOC stands for. And so you can take this through Coursera. This is our team. We've got a team actually across continents. And the whole point of it is that we've created this online training program with a toolkit, right? And in that training program, we've got bystander intervention training. And then in addition to the online course, you can do debriefs with the leaders. And then these are the different topics that they offer. So week 1 is about creating a safe field environment. Week 2 is about creating a safe team culture. And week 3 is about creating an inclusive field team. You could do it all in one day. It's like you don't actually have to take it in 3 weeks. That was just us trying to be lax. So those are some of the really positive things that are happening. Our trainings are open all the time. There's a lot of other really cool groups that are doing things like bystander intervention training. There's this lovely individual who does stuff with AGU at the AGU meetings, and they do more of like role playing and stuff like that. With our trainings, we use real world scenarios that we've collected from individuals, and we sit down and we talk about, okay, how would you intervene and why? We talk about why the way I intervene would be different than the way you intervene, and what's safest for us. I was telling them over there, there's someone right now who's developing a bystander intervention training that's like virtual reality, and you engage with someone in that space, so it just feels a little more safe, right, when it's not technically a real person that you're talking to. So there are lots of resources out there, and you can start as a student. I was a grad student. I hadn't even got my PhD yet when this first award was granted. I think KU regrets not letting me be a PI, because then they missed out on like $1 million. But anyways, you can start this as a grad student. You can engage with other, or an undergrad, you can engage with other communities. So don't wait. These things are out there for you now. And with that, to keep us on track of time, I just want to say thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to answer questions, and I'll end with my favorite quote from one of my favorite people. I know we're tight on time.
No, we're good. We have some mic runners. Maybe if you have a question, could you raise your hand, and then the mic runners can come find you.
Okay. I'm Aaron Ridley from the University of Michigan. Hello. Very nice talk. One of the problems that I see in the academic universe is that the reward structures are sort of orthogonal to what you're talking about. Like, we are rewarded for publishing papers, for producing things, you know? And so we tend to tolerate, excuse the expression, assholes, because they may be very productive. And so we sort of set that aside for the sake of productivity, basically, and we tolerate that. And that creates a sort of a toxic environment. They may not do things like sexual harassment, but they may belittle other people and talk about like how they're great and other people maybe not so great or whatever. And so we tolerate that because of the reward structures. So are you guys trying to work on changing those reward structures in some way to not necessarily beat out people in the field like that, but sort of try to change that environment somehow?
Yeah, absolutely. So looking within the institutions, right, looking at those reward structures, we've talked with a lot of leadership about how your rewards should be based on other things too, like teaching and service, which is usually 40 and 20% of our jobs. But this is where professional societies and NSF and NIH have come into play. I do believe it's been taken down now. But part of the problem was called pass the harasser. Someone was doing really bad things, but we didn't want to risk losing our funding, right? So they just got to retire or move on, and no one said anything. NSF came out with some new reporting structures in 2018, and NIH followed, and I believe DOE, Department of Energy as well, that if someone had been accused or reported for harassment or any of these types of, for harassment, I should say, NSF now could take away your research funding. And it wasn't necessarily like someone was reported of this, you're gonna lose your funding. It's if someone is accused or reported of this and you don't report it to NSF and don't lay out for them how you are addressing this and what consequences are being laid out, then they can take your funding. Universities were changing quite a bit in the last few years when this new step came into play because all of a sudden that was at risk. Same thing with professional associations. Individuals have been losing their memberships. Awards have been rescinded. They've been taken off of volunteer committee chair roles and stuff like that, or as mentors, because they were recognizing that departments couldn't necessarily do as much. So professional societies need to keep moving in that vein to support institutions where they're a bit more constrained by the funding barrier right now. And so right now I see us at a hurdle, and I'm hopeful that in the next couple of years we'll be able to jump the hurdle of what's happening right now as we deal with the funding crisis and keep enacting this change. But a lot of it just comes down to teaching and training your leadership and your administration. Who here is a chair, a department chair by chance? I usually go into these groups and I say, who's a chair? And then I say, who's been received any training on management or how to be a chair? And it's always 0%. So what if we also started supporting our leadership and our chairs and our deans and stuff like that into how to be an effective manager? That would make a world of difference. So we're starting to see institutions doing things like that now as well to get away from that reward system. Great question.
Hi, good talk. What kind of, so I'm from University of Iowa. We've been dealing with this, even before the current political climate, we've been dealing with the state cracking down on quote unquote DEI at the university structure as a whole. Mm-hmm. So I may feel very supported by my department, but not so much by the university or the state anymore. Would you have any specific advice for having to manage that or continue developing these positive environments in the department while we have such a aggressive stance from the university?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, engage with these affinity groups. That's really what they're there for. And as a professional society, they're not limited to the institution, right? They work more broadly. I'm in Kansas, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, I'm probably being recorded. I'm in Kansas. We're not allowed to use the words DEI. I have a safety net of I can just say that I'm here through my LLC. I'm speaking on behalf of my LLC. But part of it comes down to and I hate saying this, and I encourage it much more on folks who are in higher power levels, but part of this comes down to courage. If you are in a leadership position right now, still talk about these things, right? Still engage with your students, still engage with these individuals and these different power structures to say that I'm here. We can still take these trainings, right? We can still learn about how to back each other up, how to empower one another. And if your university isn't able to provide it, go look in your local community. Look at your city. I live in Lawrence, Kansas, the little purple dot in a big red state. So many local support groups that are out there to help us navigate what's going on at our institution or at our workplaces that can make a huge world of difference. But also as a student, volunteer, sign up for these different professional societies. I was volunteering with AGU. I was president of the Association of Women Geoscientists as a grad student. I mean, not all your mentors might like that, but it was amazing. I did so much networking, and again, I got engaged with this group and landed this grant before I even finished my PhD. So AGU, GSA, all these different groups have amazing opportunities where you can step in and volunteer and engage, and they're so supportive.
Hi, thank you, that was a great talk. I recently finished my undergraduate degree, and throughout that period of time, I've had the very severe displeasure of knowing a lot of women who were much smarter than me, but partially or fully dropped out of academia because of sexual harassment or gender harassment. And one thing I was wondering is there any way or like any advice that you would have for kind of going to those people and kind of, I guess, trying to convince them to come back? Obviously they don't want to because they've been severely discouraged, but part of me wants them back because they're my friends, but also because they're super smart, and personally I have no idea what to do. Yes. So we definitely can't coerce individuals into coming back and doing things like that. I'll be very transparent. I'm a survivor. I've experienced assaults at multiple stages of my life. And being involved in this work is one of the only reasons I didn't leave science. Having this support group kept me engaged, kept me willing to keep continuing I don't want to say the fight, right? But keeping progress moving forward, keeping momentum going forward. The best advice I can give you is introduce them to groups. For example, the Earth Science Women's Network group. That's what we're there for. But ultimately, we have a lot of folks in there who do decide to leave. And if that's the case, support them. As much as we want them to come back, be their vocal support, be their advocate. And if they do decide to change their mind later on, help them get those networks set up so they can step back in.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm Efraim Franco. I was doing my PhD, or I'm still doing my PhD. I'm like in that gray area. I did it in Germany. In Germany, I was a student leader, and I was working with bullying, harassment across all of Germany. And I'm very happy to see that finally NSF and funding agencies are coming against this. We're in an international conference right now. Like, if this happens, like in an international conference, like CEDAR or AGU, like what are the mechanisms in place for harassment, bullying, and sexual harassment?
So at each of those different professional societies, they have event codes of conduct with clear like QR codes everywhere and stuff like that, and where to go to report. They also have folks who've been trained, which I know here, folks got trained from the leadership team in advance. If you see something happening, go talk to someone with the red, right? The red sticker on the bottom, even though. Yeah,
because
my bad.
Because of our two communities, the CEDAR folks have the red sticker, and we're just red letters.
Red letters. Find someone with the red on the bottom of their tag, and they can help you here. But GSA, for example, they have something called the RISE program. And so you can volunteer to get trained through that. We provided trainings for them, and they're there to help you address this. EGU now has the Persons of Care. So I've done trainings at EGU for the past 2 years, which has been awesome. And yeah, I'm starting to think that Europe is going to be the the country leading this change probably for the next couple years, and they're ready to take that on, which is really amazing as well. So it's not just US countries doing this work either.
Thank you.
Yeah. Over here.
Dolores Knipp, University of Colorado Boulder. Blair, you mentioned at least twice in your presentation that some aspects of this work at NSF have been archived. Can you say what that means? Have we lost something?
So the advanced program that funded this work and that has funded hundreds of other amazing initiatives looking at gender equity, gosh, I think probably 20 years or so now, they've been archived. But we're hopeful that they're going to come
What
back.
does archived mean?
I asked the program officer that as well. It just means that they aren't going to be soliciting any new funding solicitations from that program going forward. But it doesn't mean it couldn't change.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't think that, and the other thing I was saying is I don't think that the harassment reporting portal is now available through NSF and NIH as it was. I need to go double check that.
Okay, that's pretty significant. Thank you.
But I need to double check that, so
okay.
Don't quote me.
So if that, oh my gosh, the echo. If that harassment portal is closed, where do we go for situations that arise?
It depends on what the situation is, and if you ever want to like talk to the side, we can do that. If it's something that happened at an institution, ultimately you got to work with your institution. They have different reporting policies, procedures. Also, just FYI, students often have a different handbook or code of conduct than faculty do. And then staff, I'm staff, we have a whole other process of where you go to report to. So really familiarizing yourself with the reporting guidelines at your institution. If it's something that happened more like at a professional event, working with those organizers as a place to report. And I say this with trepidation. Individuals have gone to the media, right, to get their stories out because no one would listen. And that finally got some change. That is a huge emotional toll to do things like that. So I'm not advocating or asking anyone here to go talk to the media on these things, but that has been another option. People also send me emails or call me just asking for advice or next steps. And so I do have cards here. Please feel free to come talk to me.
Hi, thank you very much for the great talk. So people who are subject to bullying or harassments, they usually are very afraid to come forward and report it. It takes a huge emotional toll on them to talk about these things. So from the social, you said that you are also sort of social scientist now. So from the social science perspective, what do you advise people to do in this situation? Reporting versus not reporting, or what are there anything in between that maybe can be done, but like less emotional toll or something like that? If there are any literature, on that, I would really appreciate that.
So this comes directly back to actually both the bystander intervention and the codes of conduct training that we do, because we have this gap. I say something and I don't recognize that I just said something that really actually offended you. We have this gap where there's harm caused, there's negative impact, and then the only option people feel like they can go to is to go report it to the chair or the dean and stuff like that. But then they're like, oh, this doesn't go up high enough to a level. Well, Title IX or something will do that. We need to start filling that gap to offer these trainings and these opportunities to teach one another. In our trainings, we have this thing called Ouch and Educate. Sounds silly, it works really well. I say something that might hurt someone and they tell me ouch, and they let me know like how I caused harm, and I thank them for letting me know that. We need to start with the communication strategies to say, someone said something or did something, I need to let them know they caused harm, or I go to my mentor or my chair and they help facilitate a conversation. There has been talk about these programs like restorative justice. Again, you need to be trained. You need to know how to do that work, and the only people that should participate in restorative justice are the people who want to. You can't make people participate in that process. An ombuds person at your institution would be a great person to go and talk to about how to navigate those conversations. And I wish that we would provide our chairs, our faculty, grad student advisors, for example, or undergrad advisors, with ombuds training, so that you can then feel like you can safely go to them to say, hey, this happened. How do I have this conversation next? A chair can then say, hey, okay, we've made a couple of different microaggressions happen lately. I'd like to have you do a training on what microaggressions are, right? How to recognize them and how to respond if we've made a mistake. We need to start with those levels of teaching each other how to engage with one another instead of starting with that gap of going to kind of what feels like the most extreme, because that's the biggest barrier and that's the scariest part, and often nothing will come from it.
All right, let's thank our speaker, Dr. Blair Schneider, one more time. Thank you so much, Blair. And just a reminder as a response, if something does happen this workshop, please go speak to the meeting organizers. There are multiple ways to file a report. And if you do feel incentivized to learn more, Blair mentioned she has some cards that you can go get from her during the break with her contact information. She also mentioned in the fall they're going to be having some trainings on how to be someone who can teach bystander training. So we'll get that information from her so that we can forward it all to you. Also, we hosted, or Alice and Jane hosted a bystander training prior to this week so that our session leaders could be equipped. But also, if you would like to learn, we are going to host those slides online so you can see just how to be an effective bystander. I think that's all I wanted to say. But again, like if you have any other questions, feel free to come up to us. Any one of our steering committee members, especially the chairs. But yeah, with that, we're going to close this first plenary session, go into the break, and then you're going to come back here at 10 o'clock for another plenary session with some exciting talks. All right, see you all soon.